Hey guys, welcome to class for Tuesday, September 29th, 9:29. I'm Mr. Morgan, and let's get started with what we are doing today. Today we are going to go over the read-in assignment from yesterday. So I'm going to make sure that everyone has the correct answers for that so that we can all get a 100% A plus on this assignment, get some easy points in for this section. And then we are going to start our first full set of notes over chapter 2. So chapter 2 is obviously what we're doing right now. We're going to do geography this week, all culminating in our map quiz on Friday. So that is our one big announcement that we have. Map quiz is, I believe it's 10-3. Yeah, 10, no, 10-2. Yes, 10-2. I'm sorry. October 2nd is our map quiz, and then another announcement that we have, an upcoming date is October 5th is our fall break, so we don't have school. So with all that said, and I think that's everything, let's go ahead and get started with today's work. So yesterday we had a reading about South Africa's geography. So when we talk about geography, we talk about a bunch of different things. So we talk about the people in the area, the wildlife in the area, and the things that grow in this area, the different plants. And then we talk about the landforms, the resources that they have, the ecosystems, and the climates. So when we talked about all of that and read about all of that yesterday, we had some questions to answer. So the first part of that was our vocab. So in the reading, we had some bolded words that were our important words for this section. So we had Tropic of Capricorn, Kalahari Desert, Victoria Falls, Catval Creighton, Great Dyke, and the Central Kalahari Game Reserve. So the first half of our assignment was to, one, put the definition of the various vocab words that we have, and then two, put a memory clue. So this is very similar to the vocab map that we do in class for every chapter. We've done two now, and so this is going to be like 2.5 sort of. So the middle column, we need to put the definition that we find in the reading above. So for Tropic of Capricorn, we can see that after it says the bolded word, it says the southernmost part where the sun is overhead. So near the equator, we have spots where we have the most direct sunlight because they are constantly facing the sun and getting more sunlight than we would the northern or southern tips where they get a varying angle. So rather than going straight at it, the sunlight is going and sliding or bouncing and not getting as much of that sun and the heat, which is why we see warmer temperatures at the equator. So the Tropic of Capricorn is the southernmost point where we no longer get that direct sunlight where we would see at the equator. The Kalahari Desert is a desert with grasslands in southern Africa and home to game reserves. So it's a desert, meaning that it gets very little rain and precipitation. But when we think of deserts, we often think of lots of sand. The Kalahari Desert has lots of grasslands in it, which means that there's lots of area for our animals to roam around and graze. So it's a very good spot for a lot of these endangered animals in the area to have a safe space. I'm just going to do, by the way, I'm just going to do the middle column. The right column, you can have anything you want. It's more up to you, whatever you have to help you remember that vocab word. So our third one, Victoria Falls. This is the largest waterfall in the world located on the Zambezi River. If you just have largest waterfall in the world, I'm fine with that. I would prefer it if you had both largest waterfall in the world and located on the Zambezi River. All right, so the Catval Creighton. This is a shelf of bedrock in southern Africa that is around 2.6 billion years old. That is incredibly old. Our fifth one, the Great Dyke, is a large mineral deposit found mainly in Zimbabwe. These two are reasons why we see lots of mineral deposits and valuable minerals in a lot of these areas. So in South and East Africa, we have some of the richest countries in the world when it comes to natural wealth or wealth from natural resources because they have so much of certain things like tin, iron, copper, gold, diamonds. Our last vocab word is the Central Kalahari Game Reserve. So this is a large game reserve in the Kalahari Desert, but also located on the lands of the San people. So we talked about the San people yesterday. That was our indigenous group. Indigenous means that is an original group in the area. So they are the people that were there before everyone else. So if you think of an example of indigenous people would be in the Americas, we have the Native Americans. They were the indigenous people to the land. They were there before the Europeans came in and started to take over and colonize. Okay, on to the bottom part, we have our 5 check for understanding questions. So the directions were answer the following questions after reading the article on West Africa. I need you to have answered in complete sentences. So what climate zones are found within Southern Africa? This is number 1. Number 1, we have tropical, moderate, and desert climate zones are found in Southern Africa. So you need to have a complete sentence that says tropical, moderate, and desert climates. Number 2, what natural wealth does Southern Africa have? Give examples. So we have a bunch of different natural wealths. We have mineral wealth like diamonds, nickel, gold, copper, and then the list goes on. There is a long list: titanium, tin, iron, chromium, platinum. You need to have some of the ones from that list. I think the main ones that you should try to have are diamonds, gold, copper, and nickel. Okay, number 3, what is the controversy revolving around the Central Kalahari Game Reserve? So the main controversy was that it is on the lands of the San people that indigenous group. This is a nomadic group. The country of Botswana wants to move them off the reserve, but that would cause them to have to practice agriculture. So they are nomadic people, meaning they move from place to place, and moving them out of that area would force them to no longer be nomadic and completely change their way of life to growing crops for agriculture. So nomadic people, they move and follow whatever they are hunting or gathering or whatever they are using in the area, and to switch to an agricultural society would completely change their entire way of life. Number 4, what are the 3 major indigenous ethnic groups within South Africa? Why are these groups found in various countries? Okay, so we have the San, the Zulu, and the Xhosa. So these 3 groups are found in Southern Africa. And why are they in various countries? Because European colonizers did not pay attention to ethnic groups when creating the map. Number 5, what is unique about Madagascar? The answer to number 5 is everything. It has its own district, it has its own distinct biodiversity, language, and culture. Even though it is a part of Southern Africa, it is so far removed and it is such a large body on its own. It's the 4th largest island in the world that it is completely distinct from the rest of Southern Africa, although we often include it when we talk about Southern and Eastern Africa. Okay, so make sure that you have all of those answered. If you need to, you can go back and double check any that you might have gotten wrong or you weren't super sure about. or you just think you may have not heard me correctly. So make sure you get all those done and submit them. And then once you do, you can go to the notes for the day. Okay, guys, now that we have completed or gone through the worksheet and the reading assignment from yesterday, we can move on to today's notes. So today's notes will be in the module in something called let me check, just Chapter 2, Section 1, Atlas Notes. So the atlas is the same way a dictionary is a book full of definitions, and a thesaurus is a book full of synonyms and antonyms, and atlas is a book full of maps. So this first section, we are just talking about all geography, and it is our atlas. So we are going to go through the first half of the notes. So if you open it, it should be two days worth of notes. You'll just see the first part there. So go ahead, open that PDF and follow along with the rest of the lecture for today's notes. Okay, here we go. So chapter 2, section 1, Atlas Notes. So we're going to start off by talking about geography. So when we talk about geography, we talk about a bunch of things. Like I said earlier, we're going to talk about the landforms and geographic features that we see in the area. So Africa, or at least southern and eastern Africa, is home to some of Earth's most breathtaking landscapes and wildlife. One of southern and eastern Africa's unique features is the Great Rift Valley. So the Great Rift Valley is a long, unusually flat area of land between areas of higher ground in eastern Africa. This is because we have plates and bodies moving apart, which creates this large valley in the center of eastern Africa. So Africa's highest point, Mount Kilimanjaro, sits along the Great Rift Valley because we have the plates moving apart, creating these high plateaus and mountain ranges. So, like I said, Africa's highest point, Mount Kilimanjaro, sits along the Great Rift Valley. Near the Great Rift Valley lie a group of large and beautiful lakes. One of these is Lake Victoria. So Lake Victoria is the largest lake in Africa. We also see a number of rivers in the area. So the Nile, the Zambezi, the Orange, and the Limpopo are the largest rivers in the area. Parts of southern and eastern Africa are very dry. So deserts surround the area, and we have 4 deserts: the Sahara, the Nubian, the Kalahari, and the Namib. So these are our major deserts, rivers, lake, mountain, and geographic feature like the Rift Valley. Okay, moving on now, so we talked about the geographic features and the landforms within southern and eastern Africa. Now we are going to talk about the ecosystems. So patterns of ecosystems. So we can see that in a lot of ways they are very similar to West and Central Africa. We're going to see that a lot in this section, that things have very similar aspects to West and Central Africa. So they're very similar, except there is a major difference between these two areas. So many parts of southern and eastern Africa have a much higher elevation or height than West and Central Africa. This is because the plates moving apart raises up parts of the land. So we have these high plateaus, and then we have some mountains. So for example, Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya both are so high, but they're at the same level as a lot of the tropical rainforest and more tropical wet and dry that we saw in West and Central Africa. But because their elevation is so high, they have snow caps on the top of the mountain that stay snowy the entire year round. So southern and eastern Africa also have woodlands and forests on both sides of the equator. We see that the savanna is the most important ecosystem in this region. Savannas are flat, grass-covered plains with few trees. So we saw this in our last section. We didn't talk a lot about it, but we see it again here, and we're going to talk about it even more because we have some very, very important or famous savannas. So the Serengeti Plain is the most famous part of the savanna. The Serengeti and other parts of the savanna are home to many, many animals. So many of these animals are actually endangered, even though they have these homes like the savanna. They become endangered because of a number of reasons. So one reason is that they are hunted too much. So we have things like elephants and rhinos, which get hunted for the ivory in their tusks, which people believe to be valuable. And then we have other things like lions and zebras and antelopes and different things of that nature that people find very valuable and as a prize. So people pay extremely high rates in order to say that they've hunted things like lions, even though that it is incredibly illegal. So because they get overhunted, we see the population decrease a lot. And then we also have the fact that people move into spaces that these animals used to live in, which is why we have people wanting to make these large game reserves and large areas that are free and open for a lot of these animals to grow and live in. So we have one, overhunting, and then two, people move into spaces they lived in. So governments have tried to protect animals from these externalities, those two things that we just mentioned, or outside influences. That's what externality means. However, poaching or illegal hunting is still an incredible problem in the area. So to combat this, places have tried to establish national parks, which are safe places for these animals to live in. Some countries promote ecotourism in national parks. So ecotourism is a kind of tourism in which people learn about conservation and try to do little or no harm to the environment. So they try to have a net zero effect on the environment. So anything they take in, they have to take out. They try not to use or destroy the land in any way while they are there. They try to not impact any of the wildlife in these areas. So we have ecotourism as a way to try and cut down on the effect that people have on the environment in these areas to protect these animals that are endangered. We also see in this area that many trees and forests have been cut down, which is very similar to what we saw in West and Central Africa. We see desertification in West and Central Africa. We also see deforestation. So these trees being cut down clears land for one, farmland, and two, mining. So in this area, tomorrow we are going to talk more extensively about mining and farmland because this area is so rich with these resources and they have lots of fertile land that they can use for farming, that they clear out a lot of these forests and woodlands for these two purposes. So with that, make sure that you get those two things done. Any extra time that you have today, make sure that it is used for studying for Friday's quiz. With all that, I think there is nothing left for us to do. Have a great day. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Okay, now I will see you guys tomorrow.